Hi, it's Emily from Emily's Stamping Grounds. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here today to show you how I made these 3 stepped up Toucan mini slimline cards using some tailored expressions, bifold and trifold mini slimline cards that they sell. I really like them. It saves the paper waste for me, and they sell the envelopes, and I really love making them. I made some at Christmas. So they come the trifolds come in this flat pack. The bifolds come already folded. So just folded up the trifold there to show you how it's done. And then here I started on the backgrounds. Now this is where some of the stepping up comes in. For one of the backgrounds, I stamped on green cardstock with the Simon Says Stamp outline leaves background. I stamped it on some poblano pepper cardstock from Tailored Expressions. It's really pretty green. And embossed with some white embossing powder. And I get this stuff everywhere. It doesn't seem to matter how many times I try not to. Embossing powder goes everywhere for me. I need to set up an embossing station or something. So for one of the cards, one of the bifold cards, I think it's the trifold card. I made 2 trifolds and 1 bifold. Here I'm using Jennifer McGuire's tip where she lines the stamp up backwards and then closes it on it using some tape. And I was holding the inside of the card closed and the back of the card to my MISTI, and then using some anti-static powder tool to make sure that I don't get embossing powder where I don't want it. Inking it up with some Versamark ink and embossing white on white so I can do some emboss resist inking later with Distress inks. So this is the second of the stepped up cards, number 2. But I wanted to do all my embossing at the same time and all my backgrounds at the same time. So I will heat up both this card and the green poblano paper in a second. And then I cleaned off the Versamark. And for the third card, I am stamping in Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. Must have had some powder on there. I don't know what was going on here in the video. Dried off my stamp a little bit. Made sure everything was sticky. And then closed the back of it on there again and opened it. Used the Simon. And so on the third one, which is my favorite, I plan to color all these leaves, but I know coloring is not everybody's thing, so I wanted to make sure to show a couple different options for how to use the stamp and the trifold cards. There I am stretching out my sweater again. I might have to get one of those things that rubs over the top, so I stopped doing that to my sleeves. Making sure I got it really well stamped. And now my stamp is just ever so slightly too small to cover the whole thing. But in the end, I'm just going to trim that little bit off the top later and make it work. So this is the 3 backgrounds, and I'm going to use one of the Tailored Expressions mini slim stacklets. It's the largest one, to cut a part of this background out so it will fit nicely on the bifold card that I do. And I should have edited this out. A little away from my desk for a little bit here. Come back, my Gemini, and pull off this slimline stacklet. It is very pretty. I love that poblano color. So that's 2 of the backgrounds done. And then the third one is the white on white embossing on the right. You can't really see it until I get out some of the ink later. So this is me trimming off. I just opened that trifold back up and trimmed off on both the white embossed one and the black inked one, that top where the card was not completely covered by that background stamp. And then I'm going to ink or tape off and ink with some Distress Oxide ink, the white on white embossing for the emboss resist effect here. I used Lucky Clover and pine needles for this, and I think in the end I wish I had used a little bit darker of a color, maybe like Rustic Wilderness. It just doesn't seem quite a rich enough green to me. Also looks really splotchy on screen when I'm done here, but it does not look that splotchy in real life, I swear. But I took, my pads are getting a little dry. I need to go buy some re-inkers for them. This is the Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink. And then I brought in the pine needles. I went darker around the edges, and then I think I ended up kind of darkening in everything. And I may, off camera, I think I even went and darkened it just a little bit more because I was not as happy. Next to that Poblano paper and the Copic colored ones, I thought this one just didn't look as nice and bright and popped. But I wiped off some of the ink on top of the embossing and pulled off the tape. And then the next step, I think I colored in all of these leaves. So I wanted to show you I colored in a ton of the toucans and branches off screen. Obviously you don't have to do this many for this card. I just love coloring, so I did a lot at a time. Left a few blanks so that I could show you how I colored. So if you're not into coloring, you can go on and skip ahead. And I think for the pink flowers, I used some RV21, RV14, and then for the yellows, Y19, Y15, Y11. I did it for their beaks in places. I used it on the yellow flowers. I was trying to kind of keep a similar color palette all across the board. So the same greens that I use on the leaves of those branches, I use on the leaves on the background stamp when I color it as well. Yeah, I think I colored these guys in some cool shades of gray. I apologize if you can hear my schnauzers barking below stairs. They are very noisy animals. And I took the and actually these might be N's. I used N5, N3, and N1, I think, to color the black on the toucans. Just, shading in where the darker and the lighter meet with the middle color. And then feel free to skip ahead from all the coloring if you are not a fan. Tried to speed it up as much as possible so you can still see what I'm doing, but not be bored out of your skull like watching paint dry. That is the N5 going in with there, coloring under the wing, down the tail, and around the head, and then the N3 around the edges where that dark is going to be the light, and then I blended out. It actually looks like I didn't even use N1. It looks like I just used N5 and N3 on that one. I may have decided that the N1 was too light and that the N5 and N3 work just fine together without doing a third color. Then for the oranges, I probably used Y04 or Y08, Y82. I will try to write in the description below. I think I took notes when I made this so that I can go back and recreate it a little bit better off screen for you, what colors I used for the oranges and the beaks. I probably used Y65 and Y82, I think, or Y68. I'll make sure to put it in the description below. I used a little bit of blue-green there on the one beak, and then these are some browns with E77, E27, E25 to color the branch. And then for the leaves, I have some favorite combinations I use. I used a G28 for the darkest, and I made sure to put that down, on the base of all the leaves where they meet the flowers. And then the G16 or 17 is usually the next color I like to use. They're very similar. And then I blended that out with a G3, I think, here. Sometimes I like to use G5 as well, but I think I needed to re-ink my G5 at the time, so I think it was just G3. Refill, that's the word I was looking for. Refill my Copic marker. So this is where I went insane, and I colored each of these leaves with the G28, G17, and G3. And I made sure when a leaf overlapped that I put a little bit darker under it so that it looked like the top one was laying a shadow over the bottom one. And I spent a lot of time coloring all of these. You can see my camera goes in and out a little bit out of focus. I apologize for that. I talked about it on a previous video where I accidentally shot 4 videos where I had it on autofocus, and it was not a happy camera. Only realized it later. So here I am a little bit further along in the process. I wanted to show you. I probably could have skipped some of this middle top section because I'm going to cut it out anyway, but I may end up using the square that I cut out for something else, so I don't think it'll go to waste. But if you want to save time and some ink in your markers, you could kind of plot out where the square is that you're going to cut out and not color that portion in. Here I am finishing up these last few leaves. And I have to say, this is my favorite of the 3 cards. I think that background really shines colored in with the Copics, but I know not everybody is as excited about coloring as I am. I don't think I ever grew out of my coloring books. So I think you can get a nice effect with the white embossed on the green paper as well, if you are not into this coloring. And I should be finishing up here in a second, and then I will show you how I cut the trifolds using some dies that I have on hand. Now, Tailored Expressions does sell some templated dies that would help you do this so easy. They look like great dies. I just had to save a little money and try to do it myself. But their template looks like it would make it so easy to make sure it was centered every time. And it may be something I buy in the future because I really love making these trifold cards. So here I am finishing up. I thought in the end, I was talking about how I think it would make it easier. I think in the end I wasn't quite centered on this one, which just bummed me out because this was my favorite of the 3. I don't necessarily think you can tell that much unless you're looking and you're a perfectionist, but I tend to see the mistakes in my own cards like we all do, and I know it's there. So the first thing I did was I took a lawn fawn outside in square and I lined it up, trying to make sure that the border was even on the top, on the 2 sides on the top. Pardon my head getting in the way there. And I ran this through my Gemini Junior open so that it only cuts the one panel. See, my nails get in the way. I can't get the tape up to get out my pick. And then I took a slightly smaller Sizzix Stacklet square that I have. I have no idea what set this is. I've had it for so long. Might actually be a Stampin' Up square that I had from quite some time ago. But it lined up perfectly with the inside that Lawn Fawn inside out stitched square, so that I could put it right inside and have just a teeny little border all the way around, so that you can see a little bit of that white behind when you close the trifold. And so that is what I did on both of my trifold cards. So you'll see me do it again here, where I line up the outside in stitched square from Lawn Fawn. I think that's the smallest stitched square in the set. And then when you pull it off, you've got a nice square with some stitching detail around it. And then for the inside, here I closed up the card, I lined up that square centered on the inside of the outside in stitched square, and I cut that one out again, and you see that nice little white border around it, and I just love the look. So basically this is getting close to the end. I cut one more stitched square on that last panel that I will use on the top of the bifold card that I made. This was the most simple of the 3 cards. Come back and so you mount this on the bifold card base, and then slide in, one of the branches in the toucan, and tape all that down, glue it all down, so that I don't know why I'm spending so much time lining this up when I don't have any glue on the back yet. Must have been thinking about something. But anyway, I will use a tape runner or glue to glue this down. I must have been having trouble getting it out. I was really squeezing that hard. Glued that poblano pepper cardstock panel down, and then tucked in a branch. I was trying to decide if I thought it needed 1 or 2, but I thought 1 looked better in the end. Tucked that in a little bit on the side, and then 1 little toucan up there. I have not put any greetings on these cards yet. I have a feeling they'll probably end up birthday cards, but it's possible I could just send like a happy summer card or something. These look nice and cheery for summer coming soon, I hope. Well, got to get through spring first, but anyway, popped that toucan up on some foam, and that was the end of that bifold card. So now for the trifold card, I wanted to make sure that there were some surprises as you opened it further and further, so I put a branch down below. So when you open it up, you see that branch first with 1 toucan on it. And trying to decide, I guess I put 2 on there. I don't have the card in front of me at the moment. Put 2 little toucans talking to each other on that branch. And then, I forgot to mention, this whole toucan set is from Pretty Pink Push. I'll make sure to put the link in the description below. The dies and the set are from Pretty Pink Push. I think they are so cute. I have another toucan. This one says something like "You toucan do it." I can't remember what it says. You can do it. Toucan do it. And I have some other cards. Oh, pardon me, I jumped. But I did the other trifold card the same way, where I glued the 2 toucans into the inside and 1 on the very inside, and that is the end of my cards. I hope you enjoyed the video. I apologize for any skips, and if you have any questions, ask me in the comments. Thanks so much.